Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this press conference. This morning, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji held a high-level meeting with the captains of industry on the global economic scenario. We have with us the Honorable Finance, Corporate Affairs and Information and Broadcasting Minister Shri Arun Jaitley ji, who will brief you on the deliberations of the meeting. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Shri Jain Sinha ji. I welcome Shri Ratan P. Wattal ji, Finance Secretary, Shri Shaktikanta Das, Secretary Economic Affairs, Dr. Hasmukh Adhia, Secretary Revenue, Dr. Arvind Subramanian, Chief Economic Advisor. First, the Honorable Ministers will make his opening remark, then we will take a few questions. And kindly switch off your phones or keep them on silent mode. Over to the Honorable Minister.
The Honorable Prime Minister had convened a meeting today wherein besides a number of ministers of the cabinet, civil servants and policy makers of government and other state instrumentalities, there were many key bankers, representatives of the industry and economists. The meeting lasted about 3 hours, and almost every participant from amongst the various stakeholders participated in the meeting. The meeting concluded with the concluding remarks made by the Prime Minister. In a nutshell, the participants, and 27 of them spoke, analyzed the recent global events, their impact on India, and the opportunities inbuilt in the situation for India. Most of the participants felt that we are going through a phase of extreme volatility. In fact, some of them suggested that volatility is the norm at the moment. And therefore, it is going to result in some turmoil in the markets as also on the currency front. And this situation would continue, but as we've seen in the last few months, it will keep evolving. It will stabilize and then some other issues will come up. The lesser economies world over. The Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. Arvind Subramanian, had made a short presentation at the commencement of the meeting. He's here, he could explain to you at length, but the thrust of the presentation itself was that for more than one reason, the impact of this on Indian economy itself would be far lesser. Particularly because our own fundamentals are reasonably strong, as also it's an opportunity for us, being a net importer of oil, commodities, which are amongst the most affected markets globally, to build upon that situation. And therefore, the thrust of most of what the participants suggested was to take steps in the direction of further strengthening the Indian economy. Now, with regard to various steps that they suggested was to concentrate on the agricultural sector, which will also have a spillover effect on other sectors because a good agriculture improves the purchasing power of a large number of people. Increased expenditure on irrigation, emphasis on food processing, expediting the entire investment process which has gone into infrastructure creation. Some illustrations were given with regard to further steps to be taken in easing the doing of business in India. Since there were representatives of various sectors, some 3-4 suggestions with regard to these specific sectors were also given as to how you can still take further steps to ease the systems. There were several suggestions with regard to de-stressing the stressed sectors, particularly steel, textile, discoms, tourism, cost of labor and cost of capital, a further emphasis on stalled projects. In cases where there is a clear evidence of dumping, some defensive measures were also suggested by some of the participants. Most participants felt that has to be carried on, and they expressed hope that GST, which was held up because of parliamentary obstruction, would move further. Participants also specifically emphasized on 2 more legislative steps, one relating to the bankruptcy code and the other relating to the applicability of the definition of corruption under the Prevention of Corruption Act, a step which the government has already taken. Even on the bankruptcy code, we informed them that it's in the final stages of its drafting. The Prime Minister concluded the entire discussions by pointing out the various strengths that India has in terms of its human resource, in terms of oil prices, the knowledge society, the size of the domestic market, and that we were not entirely an export-dependent economy. He then laid emphasis on job-creating sectors such as the MSMEs. One of the suggestions made by a participant which the Prime Minister endorsed was also on using Manrega as a possible tool for even skill development promotion. Special emphasis on space and blue economy, the importance of the Mudra Bank in supporting the unorganized sector, and finally, currency and governance which will lead to early decisions itself. Now, by and large, a major thrust of the entire discussion really was that since in terms of its economy, India is relatively untouched, or very little touched by these events, except the transient impact on markets. It's an opportunity that India must avail of in terms of further strengthening its own domestic economy, so that the larger benefits of this global events or situation which has been created can come India's way. This was broadly the thrust of the entire discussion itself. I'll request Dr. Subramaniam to briefly explain the presentation that he had made at that meeting. He can share that with you.
Thank you, Honorable Finance Minister. Essentially, the presentation consisted of identifying what were the key events that are contributing to the turmoil and how, in the midst of all these challenges that they pose, no doubt, how, why these also represented, potential opportunities for India going forward, and what some of these opportunities might be. And as the Prime Minister also clarified very clearly that, this is not a matter of, one country taking advantage of another country's, performance deteriorating. It's just a matter of seeing both challenges, but especially the opportunities that arise. The three key events that we analyze, one is the uncertainty over U.S. Fed policy. The second, of course, geopolitical events like the U.S.-Iran deal, plus the shale gas revolution, plus the slowdown in growth, are likely to lead to a situation where we see an era of relatively cheap oil. And of course, the third most important recent development that's contributing to the turmoil is, of course, China, and not just the proximate events of the stock market decline, the currency depreciation, but more fundamentally the reassessment of Chinese growth prospects. The fact that China is trying to change its model of development towards less manufacturing, less manufactured exports, more consumption, which which in a sense releases investment opportunities also for other countries. And the argument, and I'm just now recapitulating what the Finance Minister said, that cheap oil basically means that for us it's going to help us maintain macroeconomic stability, because oil is such a key determinant of inflation, the fiscal deficit, and the current account deficit. And it's an interesting factoid that many of our episodes of macroeconomic pressures in 81, 91, 2013 were all associated with high oil prices. So low oil prices are contribute to macro stability. Then, of course, India does stand out. All the projections that you see is going to be the highest growing country amongst all the major economies. And that's a fact that means that India is going to remain a relatively attractive investment destination. And on the other side, while there is no doubt that, the Chinese slowdown and the massive excess capacity in several sectors, including steel, is going to pose challenges for India, but there is a sense in which we're less vulnerable because our exports to China as a share of our GDP is much less than many emerging market countries. So in that sense, the Chinese slowdown will have little less impact on us. And then the big opportunity that arises from this whole thing is that, if you think about it, India is a country that has a lot of untapped potential in many areas, including infrastructure. And what, in some ways, the recent turmoil is doing is that the cost of building infrastructure actually is going to go down, making investment more attractive because, all the inputs that infrastructure uses like coal, cement, steel, etc. are much cheaper now. So infrastructure is going to receive a boost, and this is consistent with, the government's program of boosting public investment in roads, railways, smart cities, affordable housing, and of course, in turn, given that manufacturing is so important for, infrastructure is so important for manufacturing and for, value-added chains, be it in clothing and textile or in agriculture, which the finance minister also emphasized. So these are kinds of opportunities that will come India's way. And to some extent, we see that happening already because, even today's newspaper, for example, has an article on Siemens wanting to come to India, and that's consistent with, companies like Foxconn, Xiaomi, many others either committing or actually committed to coming to India. So in a sense, some of these investments are also a little bit of a hedge against the China slowdown. So while India, for all these reasons, will remain an attractive investment destination in and of itself, these current developments might also contribute a little bit more, provided, of course, as the finance minister said, many of the suggestions that were made are taken up and followed through and implemented. Thank you.
Jane?
Thank you, sir. I think there was broad consensus in the meeting that we are going to go through a bit of a turbulent period. As Honorable Finance Minister has also said, there are some transient effects in the global economy that will take themselves some time to work through. And there were a number of suggestions as to what we could do in the short term to deal with this turbulence and to further strengthen our macroeconomic factors. These included discussions around how we could strengthen our administrative mechanisms and streamline certain. There were some stalled projects. So those were items that we discussed that would assist the economy through this short-term turbulence. But the bulk of the conversation, as Honorable Finance Minister has also said, was on the real economy, which is how do we further strengthen our long-term competitiveness. And there we discussed at length about infrastructure, we discussed about agricultural productivity, we talked about logistics, and we talked about the cost of capital. So there were a number of these factors that were brought up. Honorable Prime Minister, when he concluded, emphasized 2 or 3 areas. One, he said that whatever we have to do collectively through teamwork, and for all stakeholders to work together to build India. Second thing he did say was that there are global and domestic trends, as the CA has pointed out, that are very positive for India. But he said, given this set of circumstances, it's very important for us to focus on job creation, given India's demographics, that in job creation, the MSME sector, the Mudra initiative that we have is extraordinarily important. And he suggested to industry that they should really contribute to nation building, to invest in India and really see what can be done in Make in India for India. So that was what the Honorable Prime Minister said.
Yeah, Akhilesh, 1 minute. We'll come back to you, Akhilesh. Yeah.
Was this deflation versus inflation debate discussed? And two, if we are having this kind of minimal impact on India, are we really not that integrated with the rest of the world?
No, we are integrated. That is why the impact on the markets is there. And therefore, there would be, in terms of commodity prices, oil prices, some impact on India. But because we are a net importer, the impact of that is favorable. The other subject did not specifically come up.
So Shubham from Cogen says, sir, among the several suggestions and the observations made, was there a case spelled out for the monetary easing given the external volatility on the negative, but internally our retail inflations...
many participants did express that view.
Yeah. So were there any observations made by the Prime Minister or you regarding monetary easing?
No, there were the individual participants from amongst the industry and the economists. Some of them did make that suggestion.
Yeah, Rupa.
Sir, I'm Ruchi Bhatia from ET now. The industry leaders did come and say that the Prime Minister has highlighted a need to improve the risk-taking abilities for the industry. Could you elaborate on that? And given the fact that the industry has highlighted, the fact that the government needs to push clearances, how are you viewing it in the light of what the Prime Minister said?
You see, the two things are clearly distinct from each other. For instance, a large number of representatives of the industry mentioned at length the processes which have been eased, particularly FIPP clearances. In fact, one of them suggested that these are the fastest clearances that they've ever got in their lives. But equally, they said that as the experience picks up, there are some sectors in which the government has to tie up certain loose ends. One or two or three examples were also given. So each one related to his own industry and his own sector while suggesting this. Prime Minister, while responding to the entire debate, said that since you regard this as a great opportunity for India, it is for India's private sector also now to increase their own investments. And conventionally, compared to others, the private sector has a greater risk-taking ability because their entrepreneurship emanates out of risk-taking. So the two statements were made in different contexts.
सर लक्ष्मण CNBC आवाज से कई इंडस्ट्री चैम्बर ने यह भी कहा शायद कि जीएसटी को लेकर सरकार को और तेजी से आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, राजनीतिक गतिरोध को लेकर कुछ आशंका जताई गई, इस पर सरकार की क्या राय थी?
कोई आशंका नहीं जताई, सब लोग जानते हैं कि जीएसटी कौन चाहता है और कौन रोक रहा है।
सर मैं एबीपी न्यूज से हूँ सर, शिफ्ट कर गया सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि इंडस्ट्री के कई सेक्शन से एक अविश्वास का माहौल सा इंडिकेशन दिया जा रहा है, उनको लग रहा है भरोसा नहीं है, तो प्रधानमंत्री ने इस बारे में क्या मैसेज देने की कोशिश की?
मीटिंग में इस प्रकार सा कोई अविश्वास नहीं था।
जॉब ग्रोथ को बढ़ाने के लिए इंडस्ट्री को इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं हो पा रहा है, उसकी इंडस्ट्री के लिए
देखिए, कुछ उद्योग के प्रतिनिधियों ने और अर्थशास्त्रियों ने स्वयं भी इसके ऊपर टिप्पणी की कि जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर का, क्योंकि स्टेट लेड ग्रोथ, पब्लिक इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ा है, लेकिन जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर का इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ना चाहिए था उसमें गति लाने की आवश्यकता है। जहां तक जॉब क्रिएशन का प्रश्न है, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इसका काफी लंबे तरीके से जिक्र किया, पार्टिसिपेंट्स ने भी किया। कुछ ने एजुकेशनल सेक्टर के ऊपर एक्सपेंशन की बात की कि आप आज शिक्षा में निवेश करते हो तो अगले कई दशकों के लिए आप ह्यूमन रिसोर्स खड़ा करते हो जिससे रोजगार बढ़ेगा। स्किल डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर लोगों का जोर था और प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर है और एमएसएमई है कि बहुत बड़ा योगदान इनकी सहायता करे बैंकिंग सिस्टम और रोजगार क्रिएट करने का ऐसे माहौल में इसमें क्षमता है, क्योंकि ये अर्थव्यवस्था को नीचे से उसके बेस को बढ़ाता है।
So, Srivat from Business Line newspaper. So, couple of questions. One, what was the RBI governor's view in the meeting? And secondly, when can one expect a policy response? Should we?
There was no discussion on any time frame or any such thing, and neither did the governor say this, nor was this an opportunity to say this. Of course, towards the end, before the Prime Minister spoke, just as Dr. Subramaniam had initiated the discussion, amongst the economists present there, Dr. Vivek Debroy, Dr. Panegriya, Dr. Rajan, on the economic situation and how they look at the situation, they gave their own opinions.
Yeah, Sapna. I'll come back to you. Yes.
Sapna from CNBC. So, somebody else had also earlier asked this question about deflation, and the Chief Economic Advisor has spoken about it. So, how confident are we in terms of our, growth indicators for this year? Global prices are down. Of course, that's a huge, relief for India on the fiscal front, also on the CAD front. But what about the growth sentiment? Is that really on track? And do we expect something on this front in the next 3 to 4 months? Any further measures that the government would like to take apart from what we are talking about at the moment?
I'll just answer the first part of the question about how we see this. I spoke about this last week. As I said, if you examine the GDP data carefully, the GDP at basic prices showed an improvement from the last quarter to this quarter, 6.1 to 7.1%. And, there was some uncertainty about the estimates of GDP at market prices. And if you kind of adjust it for the methodology of the CSO, that too seems to suggest that directionally GDP at market prices also improved from last quarter to this year. So the sense that there is a recovery is there in the data. As for the measures, I'll leave it to
Sir, Ahmed from the station. एक क्वेश्चन है मेरा ये कि जिस तरह से इन्फ्लेशन नेगेटिव मार्जिन है और उसके बाद आरबीआई के काफी बैठक हुई है, क्या इंटरेस्ट रेट को लेकर के कोई गाइडलाइन आगे के लिए कोई इंटरेस्ट रेट तक होने पर
नहीं, इस विषय के ऊपर आरबीआई का अधिकार क्षेत्र में आता है और इसलिए इस विषय पे सरकार कोई टिप्पणी करे इसकी कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है।
So CA in his assessment of the economy a few days back had said that India is entering into deflationary territory. What was RBI governor's assessment of the Indian economy at the meeting?
There was no reaction or comment on this issue.
Yeah, Venkatram.
Arun Ji, you have given a very detailed information about today's meeting and also the Prime Minister's statement, the collective team spirit is required. Under these circumstances, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Jayalalitha, has set a record of collection of the investment of 1 lakh crore in Tamil Nadu. The day after tomorrow starts the 2 days Global Investors Conference, setting a trend for the other states of the India.
Yes, it's a
how
good
do you see the she's taking the initiative to strengthen not only Tamil Nadu economy but also the nation's economy?
No, it's a very good trend that states are taking. I wish the Tamil Nadu Global Investors Conference all the best.
Yeah, Timsi.
My name is Timsi. I'm from HT. Part of the global turmoil that we are witnessing in our economy is heavy selling by FIIs. Now, is there any measure that we are supposed to see from the government to control this sort of a thing, or maybe boost our own investments so that the trend of FIIs...
As I said, this is also in response to what he just now asked. We are concentrating. The whole purpose of the meeting today and all the steps the government is taking is really not to deal with the situation which involves daily selling or buying. Economic policy measures can't be centered around what happens in the market every day. We are concentrating on strengthening the economy as a whole and using this as an opportunity where we can stand out in comparison to the rest of the world.
सर, रक्षित हूँ एबीपी न्यूज से। सर, जब आपकी सरकार आई और लैंड एक्विजिशन ऑर्डिनेंस लेके आई तो इंडस्ट्री ने बहुत पॉजिटिव रिव्यूज दिए, बहुत खुश थी। लेकिन अब इस पर सरकार जिस तरीके से पीछे गई है, तो अब इंडस्ट्री के क्या कंसर्न्स थे, क्योंकि इसी को अभी तक का सबसे बड़ा इकोनॉमिक
नहीं है, क्योंकि सरकार ने जो वैकल्पिक रास्ता बतलाया है वो उद्योग को भी समझ में आता है। एक पार्टिसिपेंट ने उसका जिक्र किया और उसने कहा कि ये जो वैकल्पिक रास्ते राज्यों के माध्यम से सरकार दिखला रही है, अन्य विषयों में भी इस रास्ते को अपनाना बेहतर होगा और सरल भी होगा।
That's the last question, please.
Sir, I'm Ashutosh from Bloomberg TV. In fact, 2 weeks back also, when PM held a review meeting with with you, of course, and France Ministry, the point that came out basically was to how to best use this global situation for our advantage. But what actually is the blueprint? What actually are we looking at in terms of using this situation for our best advantage?
Well, I think what we are looking at, which I have been repeatedly saying, different steps to strengthen the Indian economy. Now, the steps will range from investment in infrastructure, investment in irrigation, so that we can easing businesses, attracting more global investment, generating private sector investment in India, increasing public. These are the various steps which we mentioned, which we are taking. So, in this situation, the best option for India is to strengthen our basic parameters.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, friends. Kindly join us for tea.